If you would, please give your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Anthony Dinar. You did get it right. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I've been a licensed cosmetologist since 2005. I began beauty school 15 years ago, and today I'm happy to say that I own my own salon. I'm here to support HB 2011. The bill lets salon owners hire students. Today we make a choice between fear-mongering and free enterprise, between the right to earn a living and government overreach. It does not take a license to know not to service a client with parasites or scalps or open sores. It takes on-the-site training and a lot of common sense. This is why this carve-out already exists in every major mall in the state of Arizona. Blow dryers, curling irons, flat irons, all of these can be demonstrated on the public without having a license to sell them these items. Cosmetology licensing does not even certify first aid, which is something that even requires continuing education, which cosmetology does not. Majority of our education comes from mentorships in the industry. And Bill HB 2011, educational bill in nature, would help this continue in the industry. In closing, you'll find some of these licensed professionals to be angry today. They are mad at the fact that they couldn't take advantage of this opportunity that you're about to give to the next generation of beauty school students here in Arizona. And that is the ability to work in a salon to offset the cost of vocational education that before HB 2011
30 seconds, sir.
only taught them how to pass a test that never once tested applicants on their ability to blow dry hair. And that concludes what I have to say.
May I ask one question?
Yes, of course.
In your salon, you have a choice. You may hire a licensed cosmetologist, or you may hire a blow dry specialist. Which do you hire?
So you would preferably want both. And the idea is I can do more clients per hour by having someone that I've already hired as a receptionist, let's say, to be able to just wash and dry my clients, who gets to see me work every day, formulating, formulas and stuff like that for color, that they get to use that education towards advancing their own career once they've gone through beauty school.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fincham?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Diner, thank you for your testimony, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Maybe
having me.
you can answer the question that I posed to Representative Michelle Ugenti-Rita, and that is, does the fact that you hold a license in your hand, does that provide a pathway for an injured party, if you will, to be made whole? Or is
No.
that basically just a license to do business?
It does not. Yeah, it's just a license to do business. I can be fined by the State Board of Cosmetology because I have that license, but it doesn't do anything to remedy the problem with the injured party, let's say. I have, in a salon, I already have, if I'm a client, a member of the public, I already have every tort available lawsuit to go after whoever did whatever to me. That doesn't require a license.
Mr.
A person's hair falls out after you've done the coloring because somehow somebody screwed up chemicals.
Sure.
Who's responsible for that? Is there a legal recourse for the individual who has lost all his, I'm sorry, Mr. Espinosa.
And then there's me.
Mr. Chairman, to that point,
Yes.
I think that I think it's really crucial that we keep separate the two things. You're talking about mixing chemicals. We're talking about blow drying hair. So
I
I just
understand.
want to be very, and I'm trying to tease out. My follow-up question to that would have been, what's the pathway for somebody to be made whole if they do suffer some sort of damage or an injury?
Ultimately, the person who's responsible for that damage is going to be responsible, and therefore you have the ability to sue me and my salon, but it's not an avenue that you necessarily need a license for. You're going to sue me through a tort lawsuit regardless of me having a license or not.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's not
Please.
what I was looking for. Is I presume that you carry liability insurance
Correct.
beyond, and that liability insurance is designed to stand behind you in the event that you have something where somebody needs to be made whole. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Independent of the license. The license has nothing to do with my insurance you could have a movie theater, for example, and a trip and fall could happen. You don't need a license to operate that movie theater, but you still have the same avenues to sue the owner of that business for neglect, let's say, for water on the floor.
Okay. And final follow-up
Please.
question. So as a condition of having liability insurance, does the insurance carrier require you to be licensed in all aspects of cosmetology, including using a blow dryer and washing people's hair?
My education experience doesn't have an insurance background. I wouldn't be able to honestly tell you, the ins and outs of how an insurance company underwrites certain things. I wouldn't be privy to that information.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's not what my question was. Does your insurance carrier require you to have a license?
No, I do not believe
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kern.
Just a quick question. How will you notify, should this bill pass, is there any kind of notification to the public? Right now, you have to display your licenses, I would assume. Is there any kind of notification to the public that you would do as a service to the public, stating, hey, I'm going to get my hair dried and I'm not licensed or something?
Chairman and members of the committee, yes, you would display something at your station saying that you are not licensed, just as clearly as you would display your license. Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you get in on both ends of this. You have a licensed practice with cosmetologist, and you use these other folks to kind of do the lower level kind of stuff that makes it more economical for you. I mean, obviously a cosmetologist is going to make more money or charge more than a person that just blows hair. But the question I want to get to is the safety aspect, and we've kind of bounced around it and haven't talked about that. So from your perspective, I mean, what are there safety problems or potential problems? And I want to know, you're allowing people to blow dry hair using a hot blower, and I mean, in your practice, have you seen these things that other folks are talking about? And kind of talk about the safety aspect of it, if you would. Thank you.
Chairman and members of the committee, to answer your question, it would be very similar to any shopping mall that you go into. They're going to be able to use a flat iron or a curling iron without having a license because it doesn't pose a safety threat. I don't think that it would be an issue at all. And I think that Arizona's correct in taking that position and already carving out things like makeup and stuff like that we've never had an issue with. So it seems I hate to use the phrase common sense, but it seems to be more common sense. But just put this in perspective, as some of the apprenticeships that could come to me to be in my salon, I can send them to take a class for sanitation and whatnot that they can do in one evening, as opposed to 1,000 hours and thousands of dollars going to school full time. And this is something that you can go through the State Board of Arizona Cosmetology. They provide this.
Mr. Deschini, did you have a question? Please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, in a business that would exclusively just offer this type of service, should this pass, where there's direct contact from a tool to the hair, correct? That would
No.
transpire, say, with a hot iron. Would a person in this regard have any education or recognition or any protocols? I'm assuming that presently a cosmetologist would have when it comes to health concerns, meaning like say for lice, for example. If somebody comes in, sits down in the chair and has lice, is there any type of training that, minimal training that should a stylist or, forgive me, I don't know terms, a professional in this regard would need to have? And then I'm just kind of curious because the worst thing is you have somebody who comes in with, say, lice, and somebody who's functioning under this would-be law doesn't know what to do, or doesn't know how to recognize it, doesn't know how to contaminate the next person who sits down in that chair. I know instances where entire elementary schools are infected with lice,
Right.
just because they came into contact. So that's a concern that I have. in terms of the unknowns that might be tied to this measure.
Right, and it's a very good question, Chairman and members of the committee. That education would fall on me as the owner of the salon, who's ultimately responsible for everything that happens within that business, right? So my importance to education is strictly on me, in the sense that I want to make sure that I don't open myself up to liability. But this is just like anything. I mean, I've been licensed since 2005. I've never once come across lice, thankfully. But it doesn't take much to know that there's a parasite there. There's something, a bug's a bug, or an open wound. It's not rocket science. It's very clear cut. It's just anything that's out of the norm, which is very easy to spot. Just to put this in perspective, if I may, a licensed electrician, let's say, you hire to work at your house. That person that shows up at your house to do the job doesn't have to be licensed. They're working underneath someone who is, right? And that could potentially burn your house down if they did something wrong. The idea of apprenticeship is so valuable to this industry of being a cosmetologist that I can't stress that enough. And if that makes sense on how we educate and gear towards the next generation of professionals.
We have so many people yet to go. If you'll hold your questions, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Vice Chair,
Thank
Certainly,
you for
Mr.
having me.
thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,